Hello, baby. Dear Jesus, we gather here today to bless this podcast for the new
We can't literally
2023
okay.
season.
I was joking.
What were you joking about, Spencer?
I jokingly said that I'm going to start the episode off with, and I said a prayer, and I thought that was a funny joke, but then you decided to do it.
Well,
Because I was like, that would be a funny. It's a funny thing that we're not going to do.
you can't plant those ideas in my head. You can't incept me.
This is such a glass onion situation going on right
Did
here.
you just watch Glass Onion?
I just watched that movie today.
Did you how'd you think?
It was all right. It was fine. I had a good time watching it. I didn't think it didn't blow me away, but I was like, yeah, it's fine.
That's what the documentary on leaf blowers did, actually.
It blew you away. I could just watch a million movies of Daniel Craig doing that accent, though. I think I love Benoit Blanc as a character.
Oh yeah, what's an iconic line from this new movie?
I'm Benoit Blanc.
I'm Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah.
Remember that little chicken hawk kid that he's always pissed off about? Do you guys ever watch? You guys watch Looney Tunes, right?
Yeah, I'm a big looner.
I'm a lander, actually.
Yeah,
I am the moon.
I'm a tuner.
What's the
car.
tuner?
Well, there's looners and tuners depending on which part. Do you like the loony or do you like the
Oh, I'm
tunes
sorry.
more?
I didn't even register for me. Someone got to call Cash Wrap.
Cash
Yeah,
Wrap?
because I can't register that.
Okay,
Yeah, see, there we go.
That's me.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sound Direction, a Menswear podcast with the stuffiness. I am your host, Ethan M. Wong. I'm pretty sure Spencer.
I am your other host, Spencer DSO.
It's funny. I know the listeners can't hear it, but I just heard it. I just heard the noise go whoop, and I knew that Spencer had hit his mute button. Spencer, you could.
Well, I'm back, and I'm Spencer.
You could just lean away from your mic if you have to cough. You know that, right?
Yeah, sure, I could do that. I'm gonna be Tay the Zonde this episode. I'm Tay Zonde.
Tay the Zonde?
Yeah, that's his name, right? Tay the Zonde.
Yeah, I mean, I wish he.
Tay of Zonde.
Taylor Swift. And we've also got a third person here.
Did you hear that Taylor Swift is dating Tay Zonde now?
Oh my God! So that means she'll be Taylor Zonde if they get married. No, I don't want to force monogamy, especially marriage onto people.
On Tay Zonde.
Yeah, on Tay Zonde and Taylor Swift.
He's Taylor Swift.
Taylor, the rise of Taylor.
Yeah. There you go. Someone write that down.
No, you can't write that down because
I don't want people to look up the rise of Taylor. Yeah, they don't know what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to tell them what that is. And also we've got
MJ's
here, producer MJ, fully on. I mean, you were a full-fledged cast member. You weren't just a featured player. You're a full-on cast member. Last year?
I went
And introducing
MJ.
Producer MJ,
musical guest.
What's the
Taylor Swift.
musical guest Weezer.
Somebody. That's not Weezer.
Well, if they did a cover, it would be
that's
that.
right.
Can we do one episode? We got to find one episode where we just do it with a Saturday Night Live intro.
Yeah, maybe I should write a Saturday Night Live style introduction, like little jazzy version of our
jazz.
of
Yeah.
our thing.
Just got to get someone with a saxophone and have them go wild.
Yeah.
We gotta film it. We have to film it across Los Angeles. It'll just
or
be...
would it make it even better?
Ethan Wong.
Yeah, it'll be like me,
and it's just gonna be us three over again. Spencer Audie.
How about just variations like ethanol Wong?
Ethanol. So different names.
Yeah.
Ethanol.
I mean, yeah, it could just be like
Anyway.
us and Old Town Orange, Old Town Pasadena, Old Town,
all the old towns.
San
Diego.
Old Town. Williamsburg,
Capistrano, San Juan Capistrano.
There you go. Hey guys, did you guys miss us? I mean, it's only been like a month since you last heard our voices, because we don't you just love Babylon and Avatar: The Way of Water? Or
The Way of Water. How about The Way of Babylon?
I mean, that would just be a bunch of sex.
Oh, dude. Are you talking about Na'vi sex?
I mean, I'm talking about you and I sex. Wait.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a Friends reference.
Okay, I was gonna say, if there are any Style and Direction fan fiction writers, you just gave them so much fodder right there.
We're still waiting, by the way.
Yeah, all we have is that really good illustration of Spencer as a ship.
That's pretty good.
made by
really
patron Peter. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very
much.
But
we're back, guys. We're back. It's 2023. We're talking to you in the new year. Well, I guess we're all in the new year, except for the people in Star Wars, because they existed a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, BBY.
Yeah, well,
or I guess ABY
at this point, Or how about after the Battle of Starkiller Base? I swear to.
Oh, is that what that would suck? Like if you had to come up with like a new calendar system every like 30 years because there was like a big space battle that was important.
That involved a planet killer.
Yeah,
they're like, building a planet killer. I can't get out of here because of my leg. It's okay, my friend.
How did everyone decide?
Your stick's not touching the ground, man.
So did everyone in the Star Wars universe just decide after the Battle of Yavin? It's like, okay, well, this is it. We're starting from.
I mean, that's the official start of like the Galactic Civil War, right? Because before then, the rebels had never. I mean, okay, it's weird. It says that that's the first ever like rebel victory, but like, what about the heist at Morlana or like?
I just still think. Listen, I still think it's weird that I mean, maybe I guess it's probably not in universe. I'm guessing
it's
that
for our benefit.
ABY, yeah. But still, it's like
maybe it's like the scale of it, right? Because it's like it's the planet killer, right? So,
but I don't know. It's like we didn't start a calendar after like the Battle of Gettysburg or something, or after we dropped the atomic bomb.
I mean, we did start our. I will say, not to bring it back to how we started this episode, but we did start our calendar on the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So.
There you go.
And that's a decisive moment.
Our calendar is based.
Yeah, it's on the decisive moment of when we had a chance to stop evil and gain eternal salvation, baby. That's it.
See, and then George Lucas's connections go full circle.
The weird thing is that it's not when Jesus died, which I guess would have been like the full victory of salvation over sin.
The full victory, yeah.
I mean, I guess when Jesus comes back, that would be the new calendar year. Because
again, we're getting like I know that the title of the episode, which people have already read, but we're getting too religious. Like it's not even like we don't got. I want to make it clear, we're not like churchgoers. Like we're not recording from mass or anything.
Well, we're gonna.
I told you, Spencer. This always happens. You're the one that brings it up, and then Ethan
cashes You can't set me up. And you just can't set me up. Okay. And speaking of setting up. Here's what we're talking about. We're talking about Menswear evangelism. This is something we've talked about or mentioned at least a little bit, especially if you're in our Patreon Discord. Shout out those guys. But we thought we'd start the year off and talk about like what it's like to get other people into menswear, how important it is, why we do it, or why it happens in our circles, I guess, and how we feel about getting people into menswear.
We love circles.
Because not the Twitter ones, or whatever.
I mean, imagine if circles were triangles. Like if that's what our mind thought of.
When you think of circles, your mind makes the triangle.
Yeah, it's like that color thing. We're like, oh, that's blue, but you see red.
Have you seen that thing where it's like how many triangles can you fit in this circle, or how many circles can you fit? Is that something?
That's like
how many triangles can can you fit in this triangle?
It goes into the square hole.
Yeah, I think that's like an SAT question
right. It goes
or something.
Into the square heg.
I'm a square hag. Check out my square hag.
Hi, I'm square hag.
Yeah,
SpongeBob square hag. Did you know he was originally going to be called square hag?
What would he sound like? So if I'm SpongeBob SquarePants, what would SpongeBob square hag sound like?
Probably exactly the
same. Like that kind of thing.
He would never laugh. Oh, that's the only difference. He'd be much less jolly.
Well, he would sound the same though. Like I hate my life. And then
Yeah,
okay, I got
exactly.
it. Okay, cool. Hey, come on, Steve Hillenburg. I guess he's dead, so he can't.
There should be like a creepypasta of it's like I found this secret episode with SpongeBob SquareHeg and he like committed
Oh my
suicide or
god, we can't
something.
say that.
No, you know, Squidward
No, we can
suicide. It's
talk
one of the
about
most
that.
famous
No, it's okay.
creepypastas. We could talk. Listen, if we're a creepypasta discussion podcast, we would have to talk about Squidward's suicide at some point. Have you guys not read that?
No.
Was I the only one into
I
creepypasta?
no, I didn't read it. I watched the
The
YouTube
video?
I
video
didn't
on
watch
it.
It had,
creepypasta or like that wasn't really
you
my
know,
jam.
he had photorealistic or hyper realistic
Hyper
blood.
realistic blood.
Yeah.
How about like Bloody Gur?
It's
Speaking of
Remember that?
that's always part of every creepypasta is the
yeah,
blood.
hyper realistic blood. Speaking
Hyper-realistic
of hyper
blood.
realistic blood, evangelism.
Because you can't prove that Jesus died, so there was no hyper realistic blood. There was no spear of
That's right.
Longinus.
There's no creepy. Well, you know, maybe in order to prove Christianity, someone needs to find like a videotape of like fucking the Rugrats or something, and then like there's gonna be, it's gonna be a lost episode, and Jesus is in there, and then he tells you.
Well,
to,
I don't know
like,
why we're talking about this. All you need to
kill
find,
yourself or
all
something.
you,
I'm doing a creepypasta thing again.
all you need to do is find the tomb of Mary Magdalene, as we know, is resting below the pyramid
Can we put a moratorium on just naming specific figures from the Bible from this point on in the episode?
Okay. Boaz. I don't know. That's the last thing I thought of. Anyway, we're gonna talk about menswear now.
Sure.
I think okay. So I think it's first we should talk about why do most people get into menswear, and I'm talking about menswear as a hobby, like or at least like the intentional way of dressing, like where you're very specific, like you're not just putting on clothes. Like you're okay. I'm gonna put. I have actual thought behind this. I should look into what looks good, maybe perhaps what is currently in the zeitgeist or whatever. Maybe just really quick, why do we think people get into like the fashion?
I don't know. I think a lot of people get into fashion because they like want to look good or they think it'll make some improvement in their life or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think most of our friends are into fashion because they like they just like the clothes, I guess. Because again, most people in the classic menswear, it's like you know, as much as I like it, it's like there when I'm getting dressed, sometimes there's a difference between like, oh, I'm dressing in something that's very like classic menswear and something that's like, oh, I'm dressing in something that's like cool and sexy. Like those things can overlap, but a lot of times I feel like they don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say that like if we look at like MFA for example, which is most online people's pipeline, at least from that could be also be a very Reddit brain thing of like, you know, if we just think of Redditors or whatever, and you know, let's say like you know early age professionals, right? They would probably be like, okay, well, I gotta wear this to work, and then after that comes okay, well, how can I have fun with this initial thing, right? So I like you said, there is an overlap between like putting on clothes or like what's classic men's or what is a very functional piece of clothing, and then what you think is like cool, you know, that's where the hobby kind of comes in at that point. But I think you're right. Like people think it'll improve in their lives in some way. I mean, we just did a whole episode on status and culture where people are not explicitly motivated by status, but I think there are status things that are that come with certain moves, and I feel like, you know, looking good, whatever that means, or looking, you know, fitting in at your job, and if your job happens to require a button-up shirt or people around you wearing a button-up shirt, it probably makes sense for you to also wear a button-up shirt and slacks and dress shoes or whatever. And I think that's how most people kind of initially get into it. And I think that's kind of true also for like most of the people in the Discord, right? Like if we take our little microcosm of like friends and people who support us in our little community, it still very much started off like, oh, I needed to like wear something for work, or I needed to look more dressed up, or I got older, and then they found all this whole world after it. So like that's how I think most people. I mean, most people get into clothes because they get to an age where dressing in an intentional way, whether it's for work or for fun, adds something to their lives, right?
Yeah.
MJ, what do you think? What do you think most people get into clothing and stuff?
I mean, you kind of said most of it. How like, you know, it's just part of people's lives that you get to a point where it's like, okay, I gotta start dressing, pick a archetype, pick a class.
Yeah, I mean,
Kind of, because like what a lot of people do, or I guess, um I guess it's kind of menswear adjacent when guys are like, I need a suit for work, or I need uh I need shirts and trousers for work. It's kind of like they, even though they don't look at it like we do, or like from a hobby perspective, or from like a I guess creative or like art perspective, they do still go towards that like um aesthetic, or
yeah.
intentional form of
It's
dress.
hard with our point of view, because it's like it's so close to what a regular person would think of as an adult attire, or
Yeah.
like I mean, even though like we know the differences, and how we're like, well, if you really were, it's like us wearing suede shoes. If you really wanted to be professional, you wouldn't wear suede shoes because that's casual for the
Yeah, it's
country.
like I'm so casual.
Yeah.
I'm wearing patch
It's
pockets.
the whole
Can't
dye
you tell?
workwear meme. But yeah, that is kind of a tough part where the overlap is so small. It's like if we were a different fashion podcast, or if we had different aesthetics, like if we were all Rick, it would be a lot more interesting to be like, okay, how do we spread the gospel of Rick Owens when when our stuff is mainly about like the gospel of suits, or most people, as we've been criticized, or I guess I've been criticized in the past, like most people kind of already wear suits all the time, like
Yeah.
or at least they have one for weddings, funerals, etc. So that's why the distinction has to be made of like, how do we get people, or how do we evangelize into like the way we dress? Because I feel like there is a difference between like again the classic like menswear male fashion face basic bastard, and like the way that we approach clothing. Because I know that a lot of our notes here are like, oh, we don't really talk about it unless we're specifically asked, or if a friend says something or needs advice. But there is something like inherently evangelical in a way, or maybe like, let's say enticing or something is the right way to put it, where like we do have a little bit of like this whole, you should try this, because
Yeah.
otherwise he wouldn't have had a podcast for like 5 years and a blog for 8
Yeah.
years,
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like it's one of those things where I mean, yeah, I guess I like, I've I think we talked about Instagram Reels a while back.
Yeah.
And I talked about how unusable mine was, but I have finally trained the algorithm.
Oh, you got less reels?
I'm getting less reels, but now I've trained it to be, mostly menswear content.
Nice.
And then just some Instagram hotties, but most of them,
Hell yeah,
because I
brother.
feel like Instagram is not going to recommend any of the really raunchy stuff directly in reels. It's always like workout stuff, and I was like, seeing the menswear stuff right next to the workout stuff, I've always like, I was making the connection between it. I'm like, okay, so the menswear people, it's like these are both like hobbies based around aesthetics and looking good. And then it's like the menswear people, we just, we want to look good. We want our clothes to look good. The workout people, they just want to look good all the time,
because
and I was trying to figure out like which one is better,
I mean, they go. I mean, the one is the body that you put the clothes on, right? So you can't really.
But no, it's like the funny thing is like, I mean, maybe it's because these are mostly workout accounts, but even people that I know that are really into working out, like most of the time they don't like dress like cool,
right?
Like they just wear like workout clothes like all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the something I thought of recently too is that I think all of us have friends who do go to the gym, and
yeah,
I think their approach with that is kind of similar to us, where like they're not always talking about like, man, you guys got to get to the gym, man, you guys got to get out there. Like, at least the people that I've seen, like my friend Joseph, or even like Young Chomsky, like they're not like our chats with them are not inherently they're not proselytizing.
I'm not
right?
trying to, and I don't want to make fun of like we're like fitness people at all. Like I like absolutely no disrespect. Yeah. I wish I could work out more. But, or I wish I could. I wish I did. I guess. But anyway, yeah. Like my point. No, my point is basically that it's like the same thing. I see. Like I said, I just keep seeing these two worlds right next to each other: the menswear world and these like fitness Instagram baddies. And it's funny how like kind of similar it is, where it's just like kind of explaining. It's like, this is what I'm doing, and this is like why I like it. It's like, hey, maybe you can give it a try or something.
Yeah, I mean, but there is something a little bit about that surface level of menswear, where it is it is more evangelical. Like there is this weird like pragmatic example. I mean, a lot of people, I remember listening to this podcast with a certain person, but he said that he likes men's, or I guess Ivy, because it's pragmatic. He truly believes that everyone looks much better in Ivy, and by that I mean I think it's kind of a classic mentor too, like the higher waist, the fuller cut pant, the longer jacket or whatever. They feel like this, and there is a small need of like, especially when like newbies get into it, there's always that question of, oh, how do I get my friends to dress better? There's this kind of like, and not everyone does this, but some you do get it like an MFA, or it's almost related to the whole thing of like, oh, I feel weird dressing up by myself, so how do I get my friends into this so I feel less weird? Or why don't my friends want to look good? Like, I mean, I'm not saying that like I'm trying to make it sounds more negative than it is, but there is this idea of like, how do I get my friends into this? And I wanted to say that we don't do that, but there is something to that point where like we are kind of introducing a lot of people that we know in our own circles to our version of menswear, or at least our way of thinking.
I mean, that's true. I don't know. I like teaching people things.
Me too.
I hope when I'm telling people things that they're like learning something.
Well, because I'm
sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Really quick. I just think it's like a weird attitude to have with that, at least because personally, I mean, we just did the episode about menswear as a hobby, where I view this as such like a personal thing. It's just weird for me to be like, okay, well now I'm into this. How can I get everyone around me into this?
I think
because I also feel like we call it a curse. Like we understand it's like kind of a dumb thing. Like we spend a lot of money on it. Like it's there's like downsides to it. So I don't necessarily like. I still love it, but like when I say it's a curse, I'm half joking.
Yeah. MJ, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say it kind of comes after. As far as like getting, like Spencer was saying, getting other people into it, we don't really try to get like strangers into our hobby. We kind of do that with our friends. So I feel like since we're already friends with people, it's kind of like, since we already have other things in common or like alike in certain ways. I feel like it's easier to overlap more hobbies or interests. Because we're already friends, right? So
I mean, it kind of we've said this before, but like the standing out episode where our friends just have like, and I'm saying this for all of us, like they're all bold people, and I think that we all kind of learn things from each other. We get into things because of our friends. I don't think our friends are inherently evangelical or at least proselytizing their own stuff, like but there's something about like seeing a friend have fun and being like, oh, maybe we should do it together. I think the way that we do menswear has kind of a more community or like a hangout aspect to it. Like, as we said in the menswear as a hobby thing, it's not just that we put the clothes on. Like the hobby kind of encapsulates like, oh, let's go to the bar and we can use that as an excuse to dress up, but also like we're going to get dressed up anyway. Right. So it's like, if you want to be a part of that, it kind of is like, I guess maybe for the friends that we have, it's like, oh, we should have some going out clothing, right? So they want going out clothing. They want to, oh, I want to look nice with you guys. Where should I get a blazer for this thing? Or like, or I guess, or early on in our menswear tenure, Spencer, I'm sure some of our friends were like, oh, I want to come with you guys to Dapper Day. Okay, we go, yeah, you should. And then they go, what should I wear? And then like that kind of starts that aspect of it, And I think that that's something we've learned from all of our friends. I mean, again, like we've used airsoft as example here. Like I was looking at the whole thing of like you guys just talking in our group chat because you guys have more airsoft or paintball experience more than I do, and I'm like, well, damn, I want to do that. And we already play like Call of Duty together, so it's like, oh, this is like the next. I mean, we've all played laser tag, like at my birthday parties when I was a teenager. So it's like, oh, I can get into this new hobby because my friends are in it, and I'm assuming that other people who are in our I hate using the word orbit because that makes it sound like the sun, but like it's
the sun.
Yeah, we're attracting everyone. But like I think that that's kind of what makes our approach a little bit different. Where like there's this kind of this. Some people have told me it's like charisma. I would think it's just inherently evangelistic in a sense, or it's attractive. I would say because it's just menswear is all like a big part of our lives, as opposed to like the guide thing. Because I always felt like with guides, there is no reason to go further, right? Like once you follow the guides of menswear, like No Shade the Permanent Style or whatever, or MFA, but like once you get like the blue suit, like there is nothing else to go from there, which is why some people end up coming to us or stuff like us where they go, oh, I got all the stuff. Now what's next? And it's like, okay, well, obviously, adding in some milsurp, Western wear, whatever, is like the next step, and that's a lot more personal compared to like just following a guide. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Well, yeah, I'll say like I think like as being into fashion, kind of like we talked about the being bold episode. It's one of those things where if you're into it, people can tell because
Yeah.
you're wearing the thing that you're into all the time.
Yeah.
And so like what'll happen with me is like a lot of times like people will be like, "Oh, that's like a cool jacket or whatever." And I'll be like, "Oh, thanks." And I'll like tell them like a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Like that happened to me like the other night in the grocery store. Like I was wearing my N1 jacket and the guy checking me out was like, "Oh, that's a pretty nice jacket." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks." It's this like World War II like naval jacket. And I was like, "It's if you want it, look up N1 jacket. You could find a bunch of them." And so just stuff like that. Hopefully, like I said, it's
Yeah.
not like boring to people or whatever. But that's the kind of thing that I enjoy doing. And then I don't think I necessarily I just like I think maybe in general like I probably encourage the people around me to just like care about the way they look. Maybe like
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there's not a lot of people that I know that don't 100%, but
Mm.
like I don't know. I always say that I think I just said that being into fashion is like a curse and kind of dumb. But on the other hand, I don't understand why more guys don't at least put like a little bit of thought into it because it's like yeah, it's like don't you want to have some control over like like what how others perceive you or something, or don't you want to just like look nice to other people
Yeah.
and stuff like
There
that? Like I don't
on
know, just
that,
like
yeah. There's at that note there because I know we talked about status and culture, but like, it's at one part where like when you get into menswear the way we do it, um, we tend to give ourselves status, as in like it's similar to cool, where like we think it's cool, so it's cool. Like we're very
mm-hmm,
aware that it
Mhm.
is not cool in a mainstream sense or whatever, but we think that this garment is awesome and we're gonna wear it. And I think
absolutely,
maybe some people like when they get to that point where like they can wear what they love, I think that's to me that's what the most is like the best part and most attractive about this menswear thing is because like it allows you so much control, not just so like oh and being intentional, but it's like if you know that you love this thing, why wouldn't you wear it? Because you'll feel great in it all the time. And I think that
yeah,
everyone has that thing. Sometimes it's like, oh, they have like a favorite band t-shirt or a favorite pair of jeans. So like imagine if that was everything in your closet. And then I think
exactly,
and something I've realized is like that's how I get people into this. I mean like not it's not like an intentional like oh, I'm gonna tell everyone this, but like that's definitely the message of the blog. But like when people ask me like why do you wear this stuff, I'm like I tell them like this because this is like my favorite tie or like, I love this shirt
mm-hmm,
and I'm like and I why wouldn't I wear it if I love it, you know? And so and then the part that comes in later that a lot of other people might start out with is the details of that thing. Like I know that like with menswear, it's like, oh, start like you gotta tell everyone about Goodyear welted shoes, you know. And I don't think that being I guess being like a pragmatic atheist of like here's all the reasons why God doesn't exist. I don't think that that worked. If your goal was to have everyone denounce Christian or denounce God and deism, I don't think the right way to do it is by being pragmatically atheistic. However, if you kind of just point out certain things and people start to ask questions, that kind of leads them to that way. Again, I'm not trying to be a pragmatic atheist either,
okay.
because it's like we
We're
do,
just using
yeah, we're just
more. Well, I guess it's evangelism. The whole thing is a religious metaphor.
yeah, but it's like
It's in the
I
title.
remember this. Someone asked me, Ethan, why do you wear a dress shirt all the time? Like, aren't you uncomfortable? I go, no, it's actually super soft. And someone goes, really? Because my dress
Yeah.
shirts are uncomfortable. Then I say, is yours non-iron or made of polyester? And the guy
Mm-hmm.
goes, oh, I think it is. I go, well, that's why. And he goes, oh, why is that? I'm like, well, that makes it stiffer. It's treated with formaldehyde. I just don't like it. It doesn't make it comfortable to wear. And the guy goes, wait, so you're saying if I avoid that stuff, my dress shirt will be softer? I say, kinda, yeah. And he goes, oh shit. And that's kind of like, I mean, if again, I didn't start the conversation, so I guess I'm not really being
Yeah.
evangelistic, but like that's a way of me converting someone to like my
I
method of
know. I guess
menswear.
yeah, I do that a lot too. Like people, like I'll wear sport coats, and people will be like, "Oh, isn't that like uncomfortable and restrictive?" We'll be like, "Oh, not if you get it fitted right." And I'll point out, it's like, "Look how many pockets it has," and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then it's like I do the same thing. It's like, yeah, it's like when people, it's like talk about, oh, you always wear like fucking leather shoes and like like I'm like, oh well, they break in after a certain number of wears and they're the most comfortable thing ever and all that stuff. So I know I always try to tell people the practical benefits of like the clothes that I
Right,
wear.
but it always see for me. It always starts out with I like it first because it's like I don't. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess at this point I'm very aware of like I never just like with the whole thing of mentions a hobby. Like you know how I remove any connotation to like my job. Like I don't want to say like oh Ethan what do you like to do? Oh I'm a writer or like I like to analyze music or I like to do photography. I don't want to start out with my job because I don't want people to think I only just like because of my job. So like I don't start out with the whole this is like this like this is the proper way of a shirt. I never try and start out like that because I know that that's what's going to end the conversation. So I guess I am a little bit of like I know how to entice people, and so there is this whole thing of if I start out with I like this thing and people ask me why I like it, and I start with the aesthetics and then I get into the why it's so soft and everything and practical, then it like then they're sucked in. I feel like it's like I think someone asked me like again same thing, Ethan, how do you wear dress pants? And I go, well, I love it because they're big and wide. Like, oh, isn't that like uncomfortable? Like, no, actually it's better than being slim fit. Like I hate like when my trousers catch on my socks and the guy goes, that happens to me all the time, and I'm like, well, maybe if it was straighter from the knee down you wouldn't get that problem. Or like, why does my shirt get untucked? Oh, is your shirt too short, or is your pants too low of a rise?
Pants too
So
low.
it's like, yeah, like there's this thing that kind of just comes together, and so it never really starts out with like advice because like I don't. Most of the time, I think when we're all maybe we can talk about the advice part. But like most of the time, I think when we are asked, "Hey, I need a job. I need a suit for a job interview or for a funeral or whatever," like we just give them the answer and like it just stops like right there. Right? I mean, that's
well, because I feel like generally, like if someone's just like talking to me, like, "Hey, I need to get like a suit for or an outfit for a job interview or something," I'm basically just gonna give them like the male fashion advice guides. Like I'll just be like, oh, I'll take them to J. Crew or something,
show them
and be like, hey, let's
chart.
get some OCBDs and chinos and stuff like that, and like. But yeah, if someone is like, I want to completely reinvent my wardrobe, then maybe they'll get a more personalized experience.
I mean, there's this, it has to come from a place where they want more out of their clothes, right? Because I don't think like we're not, as I look through all of our notes, like we're not trying to evangelize like the regular guy. Like we're not, in fact,
because I also know I'm not going to.
Yeah, we're not gonna reach that kind of guy. I mean, that's why most of the people who are, I guess, converts in a sense are usually like our friends. Like Spencer, what was it like when you were friends with Mac, right? Mac obviously Mac doesn't dress like us, but he's able to pick up certain things and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I like when we were like we met in London, and so like on a study abroad thing, and so like we would like obviously there are a ton of vintage stores in London, so I remember I would go with him. And show him stuff, and I'd be like, "Oh, this, like I'm, like I do this a lot because, like, I do have people who are like, oh, we should go vintage shopping sometime, and so we'll go to Orange, and whenever I do that, I'll find something cool, and I'll be like, oh, this is cool for like this reason, like this is why I like this, basically.
Yeah.
And so I think I did a lot of that with Mac, where he would like find, like he got like a vintage army shirt or something, like khaki, like U.S. Army shirt. And so when we found it, I'm like, oh, this is cool because like it's got a like cool tag. It's like 100% cotton. It's got a nice collar, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I sold it on him. He got it. So yeah. I think I do a lot of stuff like that, and also just be like, I mean, all this stuff that we talk about on the podcast. I'm like, well, what do you like want to look like? He's like Matt, our friend. I don't think he's not been on the podcast, so people might not know, but he's also a movie guy. We're both really into movies. And so it's like, well, what, like, like what's the vibe you want to give off?
Yeah.
Like what kind of movie character are you trying to be?
Because I mean, I'll like, Spencer, I know that you haven't said that you want to make movies, but Mac likes to make movies. So obviously if you're thinking of mise en scene and like everything's so intentional, like you have to decide all this stuff before you put everything together, right? Like that kind of makes sense.
And I think like, someone like that, I mean, we'll maybe talk about like which friends are more open to being into clothes, but someone in a field like that, like filmmaking, who understands how just like intentionality and aesthetics and all that stuff, they're going to be more open to that than someone who doesn't have any experience, right?
I mean, like I've got two friends, right? We got two friends, not just you guys. We got like my friend John, who shot our lookbook of sorts, and then we've also got Adam, both of whom they make different kinds of films. Adam is an editor, and John is a commercial producer for like social and like YouTube and everything. But like they both are very aware of all the intentional choices that go behind anything. They have
Yeah.
very specific taste in music and editing and visual cinematography and everything. So like it makes sense that when they would ask me about clothing, they were more receptive to like the open-ended answers, and starting out from a place of, well, what do you want to look like, or what, as JTR on our Discord put it, like what guy is it that you want to look like? What
Mm-hmm.
character is that? And starting, and they get it. People who like, I mean, overall, I think most of our friends, most of us like movies, and we're not all like cinephiles. We don't all have Criterion subscriptions, but we all do like movies, and I think we all do recognize like, oh, this looks like this, so I want to look like this, so I need to get this particular thing, you know and that kind of makes sense of like why they would get into it and get into it the way that we would. Because I remember one time, me and
Yeah.
Adam, like, we were just having, I think I remember this. We went to Italy. We were like just hanging out, and I think Adam
Italy.
was like, "Hey man, like, what's the whole menswear thing? Like, I don't like. I see that you wear this stuff." And at the time, he wore like a hoodie jacket, like not like a hoodie and a jacket. It's like a jacket with a hood attached to it, with like a
Nice.
t-shirt, black skinny jeans that are low rise, and like sneakers. And he'd be like, like, what do you like, what's this whole thing? And I'm like, oh well, at the time I worked at in menswear. It's kind of explaining the whole journey. And we were also new friends, so at this time, it's like talking for me about menswear is kind of like a story of my life in a sense. Like, it's not just, oh, I want to look professional, right? Like, it kind of encapsulates my journey with photography and at least at the time, my career. And so all of that kind of led down to us like looking at inspo, and I'm like, well, see, like, I want it to look like this guy, and here's my outfit today that looks like that. And you'd be like, oh, I can see that, like, the collar is like this, or
Mm-hmm.
it's got a pin here and the pants are pleated. And so, like, obviously, if for those of you who know Adam, who have seen him on the blog and and other stuff, you'll know that Adam doesn't dress like me, but there are stuff that he gets into that's very similar, like like the high waisted corduroys, white socks with loafers, a chore blazer or whatever, and so he's able to kind of get into the mindset, through my, I guess, inherent evangelism, where it's just kind of like, it's just so connected. And I feel like for him, it's not tied to professional. He's an editor. He can wear whatever he wants to edit in his room, but he chooses to like wear, like, yeah, white socks, Birkenstocks, and corduroys, because like that's a cool look, because he knew that looks like a silver like hipster guy, and he kind of like that connotation, so he wanted to do that.
Mhm.
MG, what about you and your friends? I mean, you recently said that one of your coworkers listened to the Menswear as a Hobby episode and it blew his mind or something, right?
Oh yeah, a couple of my coworkers. It was
It's
funny
like
because like
the leaf blower
There you
interview
go, yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just yeah, or a bomb. We could say
or a bomb.
We made these pies in a factory, a
bomb
bomb
factory.
factory. These
These
are
are
bombs. Yeah, SpongeBob.
It's a good joke.
Yeah, no, a couple of my coworkers just like it was weird because like I haven't talked about the podcast in a while to like at like work.
Yeah, see, not
Like
in not
just
event not directly evangelical or proselytizing.
they just came up to me and they're like, "Hey, what's the name of your podcast that you edit again? Like you guys, the one that you post with those two guys all the
Hey,
time
you're
on your
also in the podcast,
Instagram."
okay? Like, you don't, like, you
Yeah,
gotta correct
You're
them. You gotta,
talking
yeah,
right
you gotta
now.
correct these guys.
yeah. I said our podcast. Excuse
There you
you.
go.
But yeah, um, yeah, it was cool to hear that what they got out of it. How they really enjoyed our perspective, or even rather, they haven't heard our perspective or somebody having a similar perspective to us,
Yeah.
um namely the hobby episode. um but yeah, it was like a weird sort of thing because they also have like their own
Personal style.
their own personal
Yeah.
style, their own intentional way they dress. So even though it's kind of like we would be thrown into the same boat, they still got they still got value out of our thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, that's good.
Hmm.
I mean, do you encounter people who maybe aren't as into it, and then over time, like, by knowing you, I mean, I'm assuming, I mean, it's kind of hard. I mean, we said this in like the whole community or the lifestyle episode, where like, if you work in a retail job, the chances are that your coworkers probably like clothes too, but
Yeah, it's a decent
yeah.
chance. Uh, Not really to be seen, or I
Hmm.
guess, uh, uh, there has been a lot of weird, well, not necessarily weird, it's just kind of funny how it happens, but like overlap. Um, like couple guys were like on a chunky like loafer kick for a while.
Zeitgeist, as JTR
Um,
would call it.
like yeah, or like when we got the pair of boots, like they're like, oh, like, nice pair of boots, man, and it's like it was just kind of like uh I guess a form of like a community
Yeah.
aspect of like we all like have our different styles or different inspirations, but we can all uh kind of bond over uh
Right.
crossovers or
Right.
things that bleed over. But yeah.
I mean, so the thing that I think that we're hinting toward, and I know this might be a little bit longer episode because I know we were doing
Ooh.
nothing for the first 10 minutes like we always do. But I know that like I think it's pretty clear that we don't like we're not doing guides, right? Like we're not like here's the top 5 things you should buy. We're not
Yeah.
evangelizing, and also we're not evangelizing on the very basics of stuff. Not
Mhm.
again, we're not trying to be like teaching men's fashion where it's like here's 5 things you need to do to get your suit better. Like we're not
Top
we're not we're not
five
Because
we don't
those
yeah
those YouTube channels are the ultimate
yeah
evangelists.
they already got it. So I think if we really do think about it, the people that we're I guess converting, whether it's by intentional stuff like with our friends or whatever, um but I definitely think that we do try and sell our own people on things, as in like people who are already close
Yeah.
enough to where we are. Like it make like for again like it just looks like we make it's more or have more quote success with people who are already into vintage or already into some aspect of menswear, right? It could be like, you
Mhm.
know, not to call people, I mean, and our Discord's a good example where people, start out like with slim pants. Like they already like menswear. We all like the same things. And then, but they wear slimmer pants. And then eventually through hanging out with us in the Discord or even our real life friends, like Jay, for example, they start to do wider and wider fits over time.
Yeah.
And it's because we kind of just talk about it, and maybe
Yeah, maybe like more pushy with like people that are already into fashion than people who are not into it at all, because then like I don't know, again, like most of the people that I know that are into fashion are very stylish, but if I knew someone that was like really stuck in like the just complete basic bastard wardrobe or something, or was wearing to stuff that was like bad.
well,
I don't
it's
know. It's hard to decide like what's bad and what's good, but if I try to maybe be more. I'd try to push people to go outside their comfort zone if they're already into fashion.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I haven't encountered too many people like that. Maybe again, most of that's kind of like online stuff, but it is interesting when people. If there was a person I would want to proselytize, it would be like you said, like those guys who were kind of into that whole slim fit thing, because
Mm.
maybe it's because like the attitude with that is usually that they are the most classic version of it. Where I'm like, no, you're not,
Mhm.
and that's my bias on that, obviously, but it does happen where it's like those people sometimes they do want something else eventually, and not to
Mm.
say that slim fit is bad because obviously like if I wanted like to do the SLP look, you would have to do slim fit, but like there's this concept I think of, it's called like the menswear singularity, that I've been kind of hinting toward, and I guess we're introducing that concept at the beginning of this year, but it's like
Whoa.
Mm.
the more taste you develop with menswear, and again I guess this is where it's more biased, but like it starts to be like us. Like not to
Hmm.
be super arrogant about it, right? Because it's like if you wanted to introduce milsurp to your wardrobe, which is what some people do, like they want to be casual, right? Like you don't want to wear khaki or you don't want to wear like slim fit, and you want like let's say fatigues, right? And then you get to the part where like, okay, well, which fatigues? Well, obviously if you're like us, you might want the original versions of those things. And
Mm.
so then
Yeah.
you would get OG
Yeah.
107s, which maybe are slightly wider than like the ones you would get from Stan Ray or whatever, or the J. Crew ones, right? And then maybe you want to go a little bit wider than that, so then that gives you to the M43 pants or whatever. And then
I mean, I think it's like there's also just something about, again, not to like harp on our own thing, but like when you're into vintage, I don't know. There's just like it's just an appreciation of a certain je ne sais quoi
yeah,
Yeah.
about like true original OG 107s versus like
the
ones that you
reproduction
can get
ones.
from the reproduction ones that are like pretty. pretty identical, or even like not reproduction ones. Like the Stan Rays are close enough to ones that they probably made in like the 80s and 90s or whatever.
Yeah.
But like again, there's just there's
Well,
there's an
it's
appreciation of those little
and
details about
and I think the more that you
improvement.
have that in mind, the more you get to be like us, because it's like, okay, well, you want to wear you want to wear a button-up shirt, and then you want it to be, once you start to like think about things like, okay, I don't want like a plain one, right? And you say, okay, well, let's get a university stripe one. Okay, but maybe, okay, which shirt color? Well, university stripe, is kind of casual, so maybe you don't want it in a spread color. Maybe you want like a button-down color. Oh, but then like, that a short collar is not what you would want, because you're graduating from that whole thing, so you get a lot wider collar. And then you go, okay, well, what if I want that look, but I don't want a button-down collar? Well, it doesn't really work with a stiff point collar. Maybe we gotta get a soft spear point collar, and then it just starts to kind of go around, or like with jackets, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you want it to be comfortable. Well, that means it can't be super slim. Well, if it's super slim, it probably can't be super short either. It has to be longer. Oh, then you want the shoulders to be, and eventually you start going toward the singularity that is what we wear, and then you're just
because again, like there's reasons we wear this shit. Like we do this for a reason.
And I think, and I think the point there is not that we are the epitome of menswear, but that if you like what we like and you feel like this attraction to it, you're probably going to feel the need to, if you're a friend, let's say, if you start to hear the stuff, you go, okay, well, I want to learn more about it. I should ask these questions. I should try and do it. And then we kind of win in our domination of the menswear space, I guess, as like a virus, but it's true though, because it's like once you plant those seeds of like intentionality and just being aware of details, it kind of just, and I think that we wear our clothing in a way that is just conducive for that. And I think if you already like us, and if you don't like us, then you're probably never gonna dress like us anyway, but like if you find some kinship there, which usually happens if you already like dressing up or you're already artistically inclined. Not to say that we wear fine art, but like if you like these details, there's a chance that you will, that our message will work. And I think that we know that based on who's in our Discord and the friends that we hang out with, because again, like guys like Adam or even like Andy and I'm trying to think of like a newer convert. I can't think of anyone that's new. We haven't had a newbie. I guess my friend Joseph, for example. I mean, it's like, again, that idea of like when we start hanging out, and some of you guys may have seen Joseph in my stories. He plays trivia with me. We start to like, I did take him shopping, and then it's like he was able to see how all these things interact. Like, okay, like I put him in like a button-up shirt, and I was like, well, see how your jeans like, or a short coat, and see how the jeans kind of offset. Like they're it's too much of a weird contrast. So I put him in like these higher waisted, fuller cut chinos at J. We were all at J. Crew. No shade to J. Crew, because it's actually good for guys like him. And he was like, see how your waist is here where the buttoning point is. And so I was playing that, and he was, oh wow, this is crazy. And of course, he's that's like it. Like next time I saw him, he wore that outfit verbatim because. He doesn't need. He's not there.
That's what
he's not planning on being a mentor. He just has no need for anything else. But I think that he was able to kind of see it that way, and I'm sure that if he were to buy more things, he would be like, well, of course I can't. Like my jeans don't work with this. Now he'll have to get into everything else, and so all of this kind of started out with wanting to be comfortable in the clothes, because it's like I can't, for the purposes of my evangelism, I can't start out with, Joseph, you dress like shit, you should dress like me. Like that never works. And I know that we talk about it in the Discord, but like that really just doesn't work as evangelism.
Well, because especially like in like we've talked about this, but in Southern California, like I don't know, especially where like in like fucking Orange County, like most guys are just wearing different weight hoodies. Like that's all they wear. Like in winter they wear slightly heavier hoodies, and in summer they wear like lightweight hoodies with the sleeves rolled up, or they just wear like Ruka tees and shorts every day, and like that's it. Like it dressing like shit is kind of it's like more or less the default around here.
Yeah, you're not. It's not like New York where like you. I'm sure in New York people get into men's all the time because like they see all these cool people. I'm sure they see all the Alfargo's guys. Like, damn, I want to be a part of this club. And I guess at that point it is more of like a thing you get into if you want to become a part of that world. There, if we want to talk about status and culture, but I think here in the West Coast, and specifically Southern California, we don't like. There is no group. I mean, it's just us three. I remember like last time we tried to have Korean barbecue with a friend, and he had to go on a date, so he didn't even get to join us. Calling out James right now, but like for us, it's like you really have to like the clothes for themselves, because like there's like you're going to be wearing this on your own, just like the rest of us. I mean, we're recording this podcast separately right now. Like we're not even hanging. We're not three roommates doing
We
this.
don't have a studio.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
This is like, and I think that starting out that way with like this is literally for fun is like the only way that we can get people into it. And it's like, why would I get it? Like, why wouldn't you want to have fun? And I'm trying to think of like other hobbies or kind of. I mean, Spencer, like I think it's like, I'm sure you and I mean, you liked movies more before I did, but like, have you guys seen other friends get into your hobbies in a similar way? Like, I think that maybe friends like pay attention to movies more now when they, because of our friendship. Maybe
I don't know. I feel like yeah. Whenever I maybe I am kind of like an evangelical in some.
I mean, it has to be,
because I do like
taste.
I do like showing people. Well, yeah, it's like not even with clothes, because I feel like that's way too much. The reason I'm not more evangelical with clothes, I feel like, is because I understand how much of an investment it is. Like, it's really hard for me.
And the benefit that you get is not that. I mean, other than a personal benefit, it's not going to make your life all like, you know, you're not going to get a promotion, or you're not going to get a fucking partner.
But it's like it's really hard for me to be like, you know, the best shoes to wear are like these like $900 Alden loafers or whatever. I'm not going to tell someone getting into fashion, but I do really like showing people movies that I like, that I know that they probably would not watch otherwise. Is like showing people music that I like, the same thing, because that's really easy. That's much easier for me.
I got into Bob Dylan because of you. You know, that's kind of
or put on like an album and be like, isn't jazz great? Like, isn't this awesome?
Yeah, there's a thing like I it's a meme like it's I'm not a gatekeeper, I'm a reverse gatekeeper. I'm gonna show everyone what I like and why they should like it.
Yeah. No, exactly. So I do try to do that. I think I try to do that more with like art, where
absolutely.
I'm like, no, well, I think you should start thinking more deeply about this, and like, this is what I like or whatever.
Well, that's just called having taste, like, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, this blog, I mean, that's why we have so many connotations with this or the blog and podcast and clothes to like everything else we do, because it's all about just being a picky fucking bastard. I was like, I like this, I'm gonna do things that satiate my taste, you know.
But you know, I wonder, like, maybe I'm trying to, like, I don't know, because I feel like the clothes and the music I like, it all encapsulates a whole
Spencer
connected world of Spencer, which I feel like all goes together. Maybe I'm trying to do that for other people.
Well, yeah, I mean,
like, you need to create your whole world of like art and music and clothes and and movies and all this
not to quote JTR here, but that might be because of us living in Southern California, where like you just don't interact with people like that unless you literally work with them or have an existing relationship, right? So there's this inherent, not just, I guess, like you said, not just with like clothing, but like it is nice to have a bunch of friends that you can talk about this stuff with. And before you get there, you need to kind of plant that seed of discerning taste. Not to say that the taste is good, but that they should have this eye that you can talk about it, right? Like obviously, you know, like in our group chat with our non-Menswear friends, right? You know, we're talking about different animes, and I remember like watching something with them. Like, you know, I just jumped into Discord, and they're like, you know, like, oh, we were like on Crunchyroll, like trying to find something to watch, and I was like, oh, what about that one? They're like, oh, that one's bad, and I go, oh, why is it bad? Like, I'm curious about why they have this opinion, and they're like, oh, well, the animation really skims out. Like, it feels, and I remember seeing this on a different Reddit where like they described anime as like just like PowerPoint slides, slideshow with voiceover, where like all the it's like a frozen scene and the camera just like pans, as opposed to like a dynamic animated thing. And I know that happens a lot with like cheaper anime. So like, to me, I'm like, okay, so when I watch an anime, I kind of have that in mind of like, oh, is there care put into this show? Just like, you know, how we might say like, oh, you know, I'm not really a stitches per inch kind of guy, but like it could be like, okay, if I want this shirt, there should be this care put into it, you know, like non-iron or whatever. And I'm like, that's an interesting point.
Well, I think like, you know, obviously there's a difference between like I get what you're saying, but I think you could just say like, yeah, you can tell when there's like intention and care put into something, because like, you know, you could talk about even with movies or anime or TV, like you could still have like very, I guess, for like very static cinematography or whatever, but it could still be beautiful and effective and like,
well, yeah,
like intentional,
right? But like this,
and you could still have No, but I get what you're saying, but no, I think there's like, yes, like you can there's a difference between, and maybe there's like, I was talking about like the je ne sais quoi of like vintage clothes, but like absolutely there's a difference, and not even with just like vintage, but like going into like a Nordstrom or something, or not a Nordstrom, like a Macy's or a Target, and picking up their house brand OCBD versus like a Drake's or
Or
something, or
vintage
like
Brooks Brothers,
like an
something like
Ascot
that. Yeah.
Chang or a vintage Brooks or
Well, that's
something.
true.
And
Yeah.
there's like a difference. There's
Right.
something.
I mean, yeah.
There's a tangible difference.
There's like a difference between a good slideshow and a bad slideshow, right? Like that's, and
Yeah.
I think that's well, yeah. Like you're right. That's what I was trying to say. We're like like I was curious to like finding out what that meant from Scott and Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Just like how and I'm sure I probably knew it too. I needed to have someone like say it for me, right? Like I needed to be Scott Pilled or whatever, just like
Yeah.
how like when we look at like different M4s for airsoft, like, well, that's a good M4, that's a bad M4. I'm like, okay, because this one's too snubby. Okay, I kind of knew that I didn't like that one, but now I know that there is like this kind of golden ratio with this kind of particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
and that's why I think it's good to like learn like a lot about things before you get into
well, it's good to have
like,
taste, right? That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said before we got into the section, like this, it seems that we're trying to just have with clothing, we're trying to help people to discern their own taste and figure that out, and then use that to do things, right? Because like I'm sure like with MJ, or I mean, this could go for Spencer too. But like when you get into airsoft or whatever, it's like, yeah, you can just like get the kit from the that you rent, but like it's also cool like to make your own kit, like to pick out your uniform, pick the magazine and the scope that you want. I mean, we said this in the previous episode with the Menswear hobby thing. It's like, yeah, you could do the meta that's required of you for Warzone, but like you also want to win with the guns you leveled up yourself and have gold in.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to have friends who want to do that. I think we all want to do that. It's not just about what's it called? Like, we're not just trying to evangelize for no reason. Like, we're not trying to make a world here of people like us, but it's just nice to, like, we wouldn't be able to have conversations if people just didn't think about this, right? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, if for your sake, Spencer, like if we talk about movies, it's better to have interesting conversations about movies that we have versus like, oh heck yeah, didn't you love when they said it's clobber in time? Like, I mean, it's more fun to go deeper into it. I mean, like you said, also at the top, it's also a curse because now you're just super picky and nothing will satisfy you.
But I mean, yeah, I enjoy talking about clothes. Yeah, when people like when it comes up, like I have fun talking.
We just like talking about things, I think, is kind of what it is, and you can't do that unless people are also into that. And I think that we just happen to be around people, or the people who actually stick around are the people who enjoy to keep doing that. And not to bring it back to like, if we're gonna talk about my whole full circle thing, I think this is so close to like film score for me, because that is like the number one thing. It still is. Like, I don't write it anymore, but like I still analyze it in my free time. I still listen to it. It's like my main source of music. And the cool thing is that over the years, you guys are able to have conversations with me about film score, and I think that that's great because it's, I mean, I'm sure at the back of my mind, I'm like, it would be great if they were just as obsessed as I am. But like, I think that at the very least, like, we've introduced I've introduced like the concept of how to judge a film score, and you guys can have your own opinions as well. But like, at least we can talk about it and not just be like, oh, well, that was epic. It's like, oh, hey, I noticed that this theme was here, or that sounds kind of weird here, or they're just copy and paste.
I mean, here. It's like, it's just the deeper level discussions. Like we've talked about, like, it's the difference between just going on MFA and reading, like, looking at infographics versus again, like, being in a community like the Style and Direction Discord,
because
and stuff like that.
Because I think that at the end, like, we know that our hobbies are going to be like never ending. Like, we're not, like, I mean, as in, like, we're not just done, like, we're not,
there's no definite end game.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's different with like between like there is no, with this particular thing, there's no like 100% completion, right? Like, and I think that, of course, you can say video games have that, but like the hobby of video games is never done. Like, you're not, just because you finished Breath of the Wild 100% doesn't mean that like you're done with video games. Like, you're gonna go on to the next one, and that's gonna start its own thing. And I think that's how we look at menswear too. Like, it's not just that we have the perfect blue suit rig that we can wear a blue suit forever. Like, it's like the whole, we're not into menswear just for the blue suit. We're into menswear for everything. And because our outfits are never done, it just kind of goes. So like the deeper discussion kind of is just, our personalities, and I think that we are able to. I mean, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think that our friends are able to have deeper discussions. I mean, I've been around, whether it's with our non-menswear friends or with our menswear friends, like we all kind of dive deep into random stuff, and it
Yeah.
happens because we just have the taste, or at least we're curious about those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the evangelism part. Like, we just kind of have this secret sense of like who will get into it, and we also know who will not get into it. Like if a guy says like, "Yeah, I just want a suit for work," like he's not into the deeper discussion. But if a guy is
Yeah.
like, "Oh man, like why do you look so comfortable in suit?" I'm like, well, okay, well, you're talking about comfort. Comfort's an open-ended question, so let's talk about what comfort means, and then let's
Uh-huh.
and yeah, I mean, to bring back the score, it's like, that's why when people ask you like what makes a good score, it's like, well, if you really want to know, like I think it's tied to narrative. It's not just serving the picture, but it's like it's its own narrative story, and it's got references or techniques from other composers, and the more that we have, it just becomes a more interesting thing, as opposed to just wallpaper music, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
people who understand that will probably get more into film score, or at least appreciate it more, versus people who don't care to go that deep into things. And so I guess the last question I have here is, in terms of menswear, how important is it for us to get people into it, whether intentionally or not? Like, do you think that we
Mm-hmm.
have to proselytize?
I don't think I have to, but again, it
It's
would people would be it's good to care about how you look.
if
Um
if people ask, like, I guess, like, me specifically or personally, right?
Yeah.
mhm.
Like, then I feel like I would, right? Because it's kind of like, if people care enough or whatever to ask, I feel like, it's worth it, worth the effort
Yeah.
on my end, I guess.
Yeah.
There I mean I will I mean I guess sometimes like like I tell like other uh like male journalists I know, I try to get them to maybe I encourage them to like dress up a little bit more, especially when like covering stories and stuff like that. Because again, like I live in Southern California. No disrespect to anyone, um, to get no disrespect to anyone for what they're wearing or whatever. But sometimes, especially in college journalism, you'll see guys and they're covering stories wearing like gym shorts and like flip flops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I always just tell people it's like, you're going to get a better reaction from people if you kind of like look the part. And so that's like what I tell people to do. It's like I feel like it's a good idea just to kind of look the part. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean like dressing up, but wearing like a button up shirt and closed toed shoes or something, or at least, you know, something. I do also tell everyone to get jungle jackets because I'm
Hmm.
just like you can fit so much shit in these pockets. It's like
Right.
it's really good. But yeah, that's more like again kind of the more like professional practical
Yeah, because you
aspect of
do
it.
have that more than you have more.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
especially just again living in Southern California where it's a very casual environment, like a lot of people just never have thought about it. Like I've never had to think about like about clothes in that way.
Yeah.
And so I
Mm.
try to help out if I can, but I'm never like very pushy. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I obviously within the Discord and within like men's. I mean, I'm always writing for a certain person, and it's usually like a guy like Adam who, is interested in this stuff, but he just needs it to be said a certain way. Just like how I was, like I wanted to know what like this look was called, and this kind of like mindset about it. So it's like I know that if I like a beret, someone else will like it, and I think that the berets are cool. And I know that sometimes people who
Hmm.
are interested in it might feel that they can't do it, and so they would need to be talked into it. Just like how, like, basically a blog post is me is like my thought process of talking myself into something, right? Whether it's, I guess, upcoming
Hmm.
senior chords or the gray suit's a good example of like that whole blog post is me kind of appreciating it over time and that journey. So it's like I'm talking myself into that whole thing. I'm evangelizing myself, I guess. Um,
Yeah,
so like
you're gonna go to heaven.
there is that aspect. Yeah, I'm going to gray suit heaven. Um,
Yeah.
so like I do feel like there's a need for that a little bit. Maybe not like not a need like of like it's gonna die, but like I think that if you're like me, you probably like this, and if you're like me, you probably also equally have reasons to not do it. So here is me trying to
Hmm.
to dissuade those concerns, right? Of like, oh, I like Spear Point College, but I could never wear them because blah blah blah. Like, okay, well, that's why I wrote mine of like why I was able to overcome that and why I love it, and here it
Yeah.
is. So there is that inherent evangelical or proselytizing mindset. I do think that I was gonna say this because like I feel like if we don't talk about it, um, it is gonna go away. I think that there's a small part of me that feels like that there is. So there is this kind of maybe small need to propagate our ideas, right? Of like
No, I definitely agree
like
that with that.
because obviously ties will go the way of the dodo. I mean, we keep seeing so many, and I
Hmm.
know that people keep saying that that it's not going to go away. Obviously, I don't think it's going to fully go away, but I still want to have some part in why someone would consider a tie. Not like in a
Yeah.
historical way, like Ethan saved the tie, but I still would like it if like one guy was like, "Oh yeah, I wanted a foulard tie because I thought I saw that Asian dude with a mustache wearing it, and so I want to wear that too." So like, okay, it's like that's cool to me, like that people are are still concerned because
No, I absolutely get that because I'm like, you know what? As someone else, I'm also maybe kind of like this with like, I mean, I feel like that it's once again all encompassing the movies, the clothes,
yeah,
the music I'm into. But I'm like, fucking somebody's gonna listen to the top 40. Like like
Somebody's got
people,
to do it.
someone's already listening to like the new stuff. Like I had like I someone has to remember what came before.
yeah,
Um.
like again, like it's one of those things too where like I tend to look at my immediate circle, right? And I think of like
Mhm.
I know because we talk about status and culture and why I think of myself as low status, and it's this idea that like despite its proliferation in like the online space, I still don't see it in front of me. So like that means that there is a
Yeah.
weird scarcity about this. Again, this is because we live in Southern California and not New York. But it's like that's why I'm like, okay, I should write about why I like white socks and loafers because at the time I never saw people doing it outside of me and Spencer, right?
I think most of like we always say we don't like to necessarily like be negative about fashion and be like, oh, I mean, I guess we probably do on the podcast a
Yeah.
lot, but we try not to in general be like, oh, that fucking sucks, like I hate this, like if you don't dress like us.
Right.
But I don't know, I feel like in some ways there's like parts of it I like kind of being like a holdout in terms of like some fashion things. Did my computer
Nope, you're
just
good. No, you're
crash?
fine.
Okay,
You're
sorry,
good.
everything froze up for a second. But yeah, I don't know, I kind of like being like a holdout. It's like, no, I'm not gonna just wear like hoodies and joggers like every day.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to throw shade on. I'm not trying to like do a whole like formality thing or whatever. But I don't know. I just like dressing differently. Like that's one of the reasons I don't want everyone to dress like me, is because one of the reasons I like dressing the way that I do is because not everyone does.
Yeah,
That's the whole part
that's
of it.
hard because I mean, like I said before too, that people don't dress specifically like me, like the tie, the collar bars, and everything. So it's harder for me because I'm like,
Hmm.
I just want someone to take one part of this, please. Like, it would be nice to see something else out there because I know that the way I dress is a little bit much of a harder sell to people. Again, like even Spencer and MJ don't necessarily dress the exact way I do. Um, so it's nice to like at least have a hand in that, and again, I don't think that we are the last bastion that will save the tie making industry because we don't even
Hmm.
buy new ties. Like we don't do that. Um
Yeah.
and on the on the part of like dressing differently, I mean I would still dress like this even if people around me did. But I don't because that's why I kind of do this. Um
Yeah.
and that's why I kind of am evangelical about it. But I think ultimately at the end of the day it's just nice to have people who can dive deep the way we do. I think that that's the more important thing because it's like I don't mind minimalism if you can
Hmm.
talk about it deeply. You know what I mean? Like if you can tell me
Hmm.
why it's cool. And that's why like certain minimalism, like if you're wearing like the big pants and like the overshirt, like the kind of more androgynous Evan Kenori kind of thing is more cooler to me than like wearing a white shirt with tan khaki shorts and white sneakers
Yeah.
in the slim fit way. You know, like those are two different types of minimalism, and I think one of them is a bit more deeper. Unless you're doing a whole ironic thing, then that's cool too. Like I think it's just, again, the whole reason behind this evangelism is that this particular medium, this podcast and the blog, is about trying to think deeply about clothing. But I'm sure that if we didn't do this, we'd probably, I mean, we basically do a movie podcast once a month, and we try and talk about things deeply on there too, or I can talk about the score. So it's like we just want people to think deeply and have intentional taste and choice about things. And so we would like to see that more. And I think that being happy and not too negative about it, even though we are very negative people sometimes, is I think the best way, because I think people, like when we have our discussions, I think it's fun if we're all complaining about it, right? Like I think like we don't hate Jay. I mean, we just don't like the Ludlow. But like the reason why we don't like the Ludlow is there's a whole discussion on proportions. It means it's more than just the Ludlow. It's about every construction of everything.
And I mean, like, yeah, it's like we've talked about, like, you know, in this episode, it's like, you know, if you're just getting into fashion, J. Crew is a great place for that.
Yep.
But again, like if we've graduated past that.
Yeah, we're not just there. I mean, it's like we're not at the top 40s, you know, we don't, and, you know, Spencer's, you know, inspired me to, well, I guess use our friends, the Criterion to watch the movies, you know, so it's like, it's, you know, I get it. It's like, it's developing that taste makes you want more things. And you know, I'll expand, you know, my expression with those things, you know, and at least with this one, it's clothing, you know. But I'm sure the rest of you guys have that too. You know, you got you listeners. I'm sure you guys have people in your life, and I don't want you guys to start evangelizing in the bad way. But I think if you live your life in a conducive way that inspires conversation, that might inspire other people to kind of join you on that. You know, that's why I think that, you know, being around your friends and not being too much of a menswear asshole and then making fun of people that they're not as dressed up as you are is not the way to go about it. I think the best way is to kind of do what we do and like enjoy life while wearing cool clothes. And that's when you'll get a guy. I keep saying this before, but I still have the message. I should screenshot it. I'll probably screenshot it for this conversation, for this, if I can find it. But like the guy saying, "Hey Ethan, what do you call the fashion you're into? Because it's not just looking professional." And I say, I call it classic menswear because that's just what we do. Like, it's just what it is. And he's like, yeah, I can see that you guys wear it and you kind of just do whatever you want. I'm like, that's kind of it. And that's the whole thing. I know it's not intentional. Like, again, we are perfectly capable of wearing this stuff without other people wearing it. But it is nice when you get people who are interested like that and use that to expand their taste. I think that's always the benefit.
Like, if we enjoy high-level discussions, we need to make other people who are capable of having these high-level discussions.
That's true too. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we should go on a menswear mission trip.
Yeah. Man, I mean, this is why I kind of share those film score stuff in my stories and in the Discord, even though no one responds to them, because I'm like, maybe someday someone will go, "Oh, that's interesting. I should do this too," and then start watching those score reductions that I watch, and like, look at all these annotations. Look at this carnivore theme, how it was cut out and put over here. You know.
Yeah.
But hey, if I could get one person to do that, then that's a new friend, baby. And I already convinced my friends here to at least listen to film score, or at least when they're not apart from the movie, but I guess when they watch the movie, we can be like, "Hey, look, there's that theme." You know, I remember
check it out.
I remember my Isabel when I told her how annoying Buzz Lightyear's theme was in the new film Lightyear, that you couldn't stop unhearing it, which is what I want. I want people to be like, "Whoa, my pants are too low in the rise," you know.
My pants are falling off.
The last thing I do want to say, maybe we'll have a future episode on this. I wrote it for the schedule last year, but the whole menswear and dating thing, I know that we don't have a lot of stories for that. But I think that the other reason we talk about intentionality is when I talk about dating with my friends, because when they realize, I'm like, "Oh, how can my dating profile look like this?" I go, "Well, it's all about your captions, how you write them, and the photos you pick. You can't just pick a random photo and just expect, like, you can't just have an agnostic photo." Like take a shot. Ooh, that's been a long time. I had a lot of film photos on my Hinge profile, and like that was like, I would match people who also took film photos, right? And Isabel was one of those people. And so like, it's kind of proof there of like intentionality and mise en scene. Everything is not by accident, right? Everything is
Well, yeah, you
placed
just got
there.
you got to think about how you're presenting
Yeah,
yourself.
and so
Yeah.
and how other people present and how other things might present themselves. Like that's like it's something to think about, with clothing and with film and everything. And that's honestly been the biggest thing with these like new friends of mine. It's always about dating, and then it goes into, okay, well, what do you look like in your profile? And then how do you think you're dressed in your profile? Then what does that person look like? And then boom, now you're a menswear hipster who hates everything that has a high vamp and doesn't have a high waist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's menswear evangelism. That's us, baby.
That's us.
I guess.
That's
So
us.
We're it.
are we intentional or not? Are we like we are, right? We are trying to get people, so we have people to talk about, right? With talk about things with us.
Sure, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
again, it's not like everybody. Like, I'm not going up to I'm not going up to a guy in a hoodie and like, tuck your shirt in, whatever. Like, I'm not doing
Yeah, I
that.
can see it's more interesting to have discussions about the aesthetics as opposed to like the rules or like whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
I'd rather talk to a guy like, if a guy has the X stitches on his vent, I'm not going to tell him to unbutton to like get a seam ripper on that thing. I mean,
No,
it's
but
annoying,
again, I
but
just
like
think I think
But-
everyone
but if-
should care about aesthetics. Maybe not as much as I do, but to just some extent.
yeah.
It a weird thing to go back on, but if it was your friend that was just getting into it, you would tell him to take the stitches out.
Well, if it was my friend, he would probably be with me, and then I would cut his stitches.
You just
without
do
even
it
telling
without
him.
Yeah, I
asking.
mean, it's like
But-
you, right? You're not gonna tell me like, you'll be like, if I'm playing airsoft and my safety's off, and you'll be like, well, hey Ethan, put your safety on, man, and I'm like, okay, oh why? Well, you're not supposed to do that outside. Like, I mean, there's like it's such a, people are always saying that, like, like, don't be an asshole, but I feel like when it's your friends, you can be a little bit of an asshole on that. Like, hey, have good trigger discipline or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, it's
Well,
also
no,
like a very
it's like
quick
going-
thing. It's a very it doesn't really make or break a friendship at that point,
But
Right.
it's like when people go home for the holidays and they go on their parents' TV and turn off the motion smoothing or something. It's like,
Did you see that
it's the
thread
same
too?
thing.
That was like
Of Tom Cruise made a whole video about it. He's on a
Oh, yeah.
campaign.
the way Maverick was supposed to be seen
Yep.
is without the motion smoothing.
No motion smoothing.
I guess we kind of do that. The way menswear should be is with high waists and slouch.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
just Tom
Yeah.
Cruise.
I am exactly like Tom Cruise in many
Yeah.
ways.
See, here's the thing. You don't want to be like a preacher on the pulpit firing. You got to be Tom Cruise. You got to live life in this crazy.
You wanna jump on
yeah,
the couch.
You got to be.
You have to be
You have to
cool.
be. You have to
Yeah.
be so enticing. People go, "What the hell is that about?" And then that's how you get people in Scientology.
hell?
That's how it works, baby.
Uh-huh.
That's how people get into cults. Honestly, right? Like, it's not like they're not
Yeah.
going door to door. It's like they always find the poor and broken people who just
Oh,
who
God.
just need to be their minds just to change. For us.
So, if you're a subscriber to this podcast, please DM us your deepest, darkest secrets.
Yeah.
We went
Um,
from being like we said, menswear is a curse. It's also a virus you need to propagate. Now it's a cult. It's everything, baby.
mhm.
Cult 2023.
That's right. This is gonna be our defining episode for 2023. So, you guys ready for a new
Yeah,
year,
cults.
baby? Get ready for us. So if you guys want to contribute to more discussions, I don't know how we came up with this topic. I'm sure it came up randomly when we talk about getting people into this, because everyone's kind of dealt with people about asking for advice or like, oh, how to get my friends into this and everything. So we decided to talk about it.
Mhm.
But if you want to have a bigger hand in those conversations, go to patreon.com/downdirection. $5 a month gets you access to our Discord, our patron Discord, where we celebrate people who keep us going. Even though I think last
Yeah.
year the cost for this, I bought a PC that we used for this, and so that made us go negative. But that's okay.
So you hear that? We need more people.
Yeah, we need more. But yeah, we need to evangelize more. But yeah, pay $5 a month. Gets us to that, and our backlog of bonus episodes. We have one every month, including on the months that we take breaks from our mainline episodes on. It's all about movies. So if you want to talk to us. Well, hear us talk. You can't talk to us because we're on a podcast about movies. Get that $5 a month. $10 a month. There's nothing extra, but we do thank you. We do thank you a lot. MJ, who are we thanking?
We're thanking our Sadcast fanatics, Shane Curry, Philip Gregard, Jarek Colian, Henrik Wilberg, John Clifford, and our newest member, Alexander Batten.
We appreciate you guys so much. You know, we got like lots of other great episodes coming up. We're talking about what the hell is an occasion to dress up? What the hell does that mean? And there was a third one that I thought, oh yeah, the tangibility of like how important it is to tangibly learn about something. That's something we've kind of talked about before too. About like, you know, about getting your hands on this stuff. And I think that's one aspect about
stuff on.
that's one thing about evangelism. It can't just be arguing in the comments or in the Discord. It's you gotta try it on. That's when people are able to try it on. That's the best way to get people into this. But we didn't have time to talk about it today, but we'll talk about it next time. I'm Ethan M. Wong.
I'm Spencer DSO.
And I'm MJ.
We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.